It's time for This Week in Location-Based Marketing, episode number 22. Today is April 25th. My name is Rob Woodbridge from Untether.tv, one of your co-hosts, along with, as usual, the well-traveled
Asif Khan from the Location-Based Marketing Association.
At the LBMA.com. Asif, you just came back from Where 2.0, and we're going to get into that, as well as some big news that's happened last week around some acquisitions, a little premonition that you've had over the last number of episodes, I think all 21 other episodes. It's coming to fruition, and some big announcements for companies that are looking for funding. We're going to dive into it, but as usual, you know that this is the place where you come to hear about what's important to you in the location-based marketing world and all that encompasses. And we try to do this in a very succinct way that is obviously accessible to you guys through this podcast, whether through iTunes or through the LBMA's website, the brand new LBMA website, or Untether.tv. So let's dive right into it. Asif, a whirlwind tour of California for you last week. Culminated in Where 2.0, O'Reilly's annual conference on location and geo, everything that's geo. Can you summarize what you saw there? In 3 words?
One word is energy. I mean, just tons and tons of energy in the space. O'Reilly did a fantastic job again of kind of pulling together a good mix of, the practical of what's happening, who's doing what, updates on kind of all the big players and their platforms, and pretty much everybody was represented from a speaker perspective, from Foursquare to, Google to Facebook, to all kinds of new platforms as well. So there's a good representation as far as the location-based, world of platforms. Groupon was there as well, talking about their kind of Groupon now and where that's going. So very good buzz, very good energy, and also a good mix of kind of layering in some future forward kind of thinking, where augmented reality is going to play in this down the road in a bigger way, and so good discussion and lots of information, just tons and tons of information. So good on O'Reilly.
Did your mind explode?
It's I tried to keep it in, and anytime it was getting too much, I kind of walked out of the room, to be honest, and kind of just went one-on-one meetings with some of our members that are based out there. So yeah.
So all in all, though, was this really the coming out party for location? I mean, Where 2.0 has been around for quite some time, but did you get the sense that this was the gelling of the industry?
Yeah, I think that's a good word. It was definitely that transition from, what we've talked about before, of that old guard to the new guard,
yeah.
And the blurring of the lines, right? So, definitely we still had, the Nokias and Navtex, and those guys were a big part of the conference and had booths and so on. But you could see that clear synergy start to develop between those companies and the new wave of companies, the startups. And licensing of technology and deals coming together between some of those companies. So yeah, I think that this conference kind of pulled all that together. It's quite different than South by Southwest, where we just saw a lot of experimentation lived out, with the crowd that was there. Here it's the actual industry coming together, and let's talk about where we're at, where we're going. So
yeah, very good. That's a great assessment, because South by Southwest is basically a petri dish for technology. Whereas something like Where 2.0 is a real conference where you're bringing the thought leaders in. We'll talk
Absolutely.
about it in our resource. But all in all, rate the event, good event, great event. The information combining with the networking was good.
I think it was a really good event. Okay. I think it was a really good event. Well attended. And just really good content. So I hats off to O'Reilly again.
Well, yeah, they know what they're doing, I think, when it comes to conferences. All right, well, let's jump into it, because it was a busy week. It's starting almost a week ago today. We're doing this a little bit late because of the Easter holiday. But I don't know whether it's psychic premonitions or, something was bound to happen in this industry. And I think we're starting to see this right now. We're almost midway through the year, and consolidation, acquisitions starting to happen, a little bit more funding starting to happen. Let's start with this big one that happened. We don't know how big yet. We don't know what the deal size was, but Groupon entering into this foray with buying Whirl.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been talking for last few episodes that
All
we
21
expected
episodes, Asif.
21 episodes that we expect some acquisition, some consolidation to happen, and it's finally here, and a couple of deals in the last week of note. So in this one in particular, I think is really interesting because you're seeing Groupon take some of that whack of cash that they have sitting there, the $1 billion plus, and saying, hey, we got to buy companies, and we got to buy companies on two fronts. We've got to buy companies that help us get into other markets, geographically I'm talking about, and we also have to buy companies that are going to help expand our product portfolio, in particular on the kind of local deals, location-based deals side of things.
Yeah, the real-time deals.
What's that?
The real-time deals.
Yeah, the real-time deals. So, I mean, so the Groupon Now thing we talked about a few weeks ago, it's still sort of in beta. It's coming out. They talked about it at Where, and weren't able to say much about it at Where. But at the end of the day, I think the Whirl acquisition is going to fit right into that piece. It's a little bit different. So Whirl is as you know, and I think most of our audience know, has a slightly different take on the check-in, or what they call the anti-search.
Love it.
And so they have societies built around interests, and people check into these societies, so to speak, and so you're partnered up with people of like interest, and so I think that it remains to be seen how that's going to fit into the Groupon mix. Whether the societies will live. What they have said is they're moving really fast on the integration of Whirl into Groupon. So much so that Whirl will no longer exist. The service will no longer exist as of April 30th, the end of this month.
Yeah,
that's the end of it. So
that's pretty quick.
We'll see. Yeah,
I read an interview about this, or maybe it was the blog post on Groupon that talked about the reason for Whirl is falls in line, or the acquisition of Whirl falls in line with Groupon's I guess new philosophy of you don't know what you don't know. Right. So it's kind of serendipitous finding of deals, right. and Whirl fits that in their whole anti-search mantra. So I think that this is good. I also think that by shutting Whirl down, this is really a talent play as well, isn't it? I think Whirl has the same mindset as Groupon, and you bring those two together. Because if Whirl was important, I don't think that they'd shut it down. But I think the minds at Whirl are important.
Yeah, no, I think I completely agree with that. This is a people acquisition. This is an intellectual acquisition. We want that talent. We want that to feed right into what we're doing on the mobile front, on the local deals front, and it just makes sense. And Groupon's doing all sorts of other deals, as I said, on the geographic market acquisition side. I mean, they bought Distus to move into Indonesia. Yeah. They've bought, I'm just reading off a list here of companies. They've just bought companies in the Philippines, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore. They're buying companies all over the place. These are local deal sites, though. These are group deals. Group buying sites that exist in these other countries, and they're just saying, "Hey, we want into that market. We'll just grab the top player or the number two player, and we'll fuel it and take over." So
I have an interesting thing here, Asif, is that I'm not right here, and that's been known to happen quite often. Seldom right and always wrong is what I've been called. But now the question is, so Groupon, who has made all this money in the group couponing business, right, turned down all that cash from I think maybe reached the apex of their value, turned down all this cash from Google, as obviously as everybody knows. It just seems to me like they're scrambling now to get into the mobile real-time deals. So they're taking all of that kitty that they had before from the Groupons, which is still driving revenue. But all those forces against the group buying thing that we've talked about, how more than half of the companies don't go back a second time, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems that they're trying to collect now and own the real-time location-based maybe couponing or deal market. So it's almost like they're starting over again, wouldn't it be? But they've got a war chest of cash.
Yeah, I mean they got tons of money, and I don't think it's complete start over, but I think it's definitely a recognition that they've got to do something different to compete with Facebook, that's going to be coming hard, I would say, in the next 2 months. We're going to hear a lot more from Facebook and Facebook deals in the next couple of months. This is what I think. I also think you've got new entrants in the market, like, Perry Evans and Closely and those guys that are pushing really, really hard into the, giving the merchant control over, when the deal is there, when the deal is not there, to get around the whole, merchants not, re-upping after the first Groupon, right? So I think I think they recognize that, and they're trying to address it.
And you've got Scavenger with the way that they've addressed
the level up,
level up. So I don't know. I think I'll come back to that. They should have taken the $6 billion, and then just gone and started a location service company like they're trying to do right now.
Totally.
So Groupon bought Whirl. The other big acquisition is obviously eBay. They've been on a tear.
Right.
They were non-existent for a long time, right? I think that the last time that they were in the news before a lot of these acquisitions was really around the Skype acquisition and divestiture. Now eBay has bought Where, which is, I think, is a big eBay's got to play in this space. So this is great for them.
Yeah, it sort of fits. You're right. They've been quiet for a while, but it very much fits with the kind of long-standing eBay acquisition philosophy of they like to buy technology.
Yes.
They like to buy IP and patents in particular. And we know Where has some pretty strong patents in this space.
Yes, they do. Don't they own the patent that is this space?
Outside of the the product in terms of its its user base and things like that, I think at the end of the day, even if all that goes away, they still like this deal because they're getting technology and patents and people that come with that. So I think this is a really good deal. It's rumored, based on some conversations I had at Where with people, that while nothing officially has been disclosed, it's rumored that this is about a $90 to $100 million deal, which seems pretty reasonable.
Yep. I take it.
Where's done well though. Like, they've gone after that kind of local merchant, small business. They haven't really pushed into the big deals of the Gap and people like that Foursquare and Goala have been going after, and Scavenger. They've kind of stayed with that local business. They've got about 120,000 local merchants on the Where platform, so it's pretty sizable. And I think this is a very good deal for eBay.
I agree.
And it also fits too. I mean, remember eBay bought Milo
and Red Laser.
So
yeah, so this is and eBay's bread and butter. They do have the surplus stores and all of those things. You can buy a car from Ford on eBay and all those. Right. But their bread and butter is the Mon Pa, the local shop, right? And
yes.
So Where's a good fit, and they have to get into this. And remember, even eBay. So you combine something like Red Laser and Where, and I mean they're all over augmented reality with their applications now as well for trying on virtual goods. Trying on goods that are for sale on eBay. So I think that their mobile strategy is gelling, and I like that. A lot.
Yeah, you kind of have this whole ecosystem of assets, right? That's building up. You've got Milo, which is real-time product inventory. Yeah. Do they actually have the stuff in the store?
Yeah.
You've got kind of Where bringing the kind of location-specific deals and connections between consumers and merchants. You've got eBay there with an e-commerce engine that's unmatched almost.
And PayPal integration everywhere.
PayPal integration. I mean, so you've got all this stuff there, right? Like it fits, right? And even remember, Where bought Local Ginger, a while ago too, right? So you've got that piece too. So it's I think this is a really good deal.
Well, what we're seeing, I think, here are two companies in transition. So Groupon, a young company comparatively to eBay, but Groupon changing their business model slightly, and I think eBay actually changing their business slightly from the auction side now to more real-time deals, and really interesting to watch this happen. And they made a stab with Skype, and I think this is a much more realistic approach that they're taking with eBay and Groupon. Very cool.
All right, yeah, and I just want to say congratulations again to the Wear management team. You know, Walt and Moke and Dan and all those guys. Not only are they great guys, they work really hard and they deserve this deal. So it's you know, kudos to them and well done.
Well, it's great. I love to see this happening, especially in this industry. Now maybe we're going to start seeing that innovation that we need once this consolidation happens. And the big guys need these little companies.
Right.
So change. Those are the big news. Certainly, acquisitions are going to continue. I think every week we're going to be talking about some company buying some company or some funding as well. But one of the snafus that happened this week was obviously this brouhaha over Apple recording every location that you've ever been to over the last 10 months. I think since OS 3.2 came out, certainly with 4.0, and storing it in a kind of unencrypted file on your iPhone. And
right.
This really took the. I don't know if anybody was surprised, but this kind of took the world by storm this past week. Did you see a lot of that at Wear?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was the talk at every dinner, and you know, everybody grabbing coffee. Everybody was talking about it. But I think, you know, I think the general consensus, at least with those of us that are kind of in the business of location, you know, all day, every day, you know, and certainly, you know, with the other platform companies there, I think we have to separate this Apple thing into kind of two pieces, right? If you didn't already know that they were collecting your location information, there's a problem, because at the end of the day, Apple's not the only one that does this. Every single one of these guys does this, okay? Yeah. You know, and actually, you know, the next day after this announcement, Google came right out and said, look, we do this too, guys. How do you think all those location-based games and applications and whatnot work? We need this data,
yep.
Right? And you're playing these things, and you opt into these things. So I don't think it's about the collection of the information. You know, that's necessary to make all these location-based services, games, apps work. The issue here is about the storage of that information on the local mobile device, keeping it on that mobile device versus keeping it up in the cloud somewhere.
Anonymized,
anonymized. And I think that's the real issue here. And so, you know, Apple has said, as does Google and everybody else, they do keep it anonymized up there, you know, for whatever purposes they need it for. The issue here is that there's this file sitting on the iPhone or iPad or whatever it is that's basically keeping that information for a period of time. And for what reason, we don't know. I think that's the real issue there. Is it actually a mistake? They just left a file there, and it's really a file that they don't need to actually run local services. And they're going to fix that in the next security update. I don't know, right? But that's the issue. It's not a question about should they be collecting it, you know, having access to that information. They need it, as does everybody else in this space. Google, BlackBerry, you know, I don't care who you are, you need this stuff.
Yeah,
it's just that they shouldn't be keeping it local and unencrypted.
Yeah, and I think the consensus, or you know, the logic is that it's an error, and it'll be adjusted once the new version comes out, a new OS comes out, or a new update. So
right.
Yeah, I'd say that for the most part, this data is required, and every other manufacturer, every other handset manufacturer has come out and said the same thing, that, you know, we do need this information, you know, I can only equate it to the very early GPS-enabled devices. I think the very first one I ever used, and the very first one that came out, oddly enough, was in North America, was the BlackBerry 7100, and it had a GPS built in. And I mean, it used to take, you know, what seemed like days to connect to the GPS and to the satellites, and it wasn't very efficient. And I think that what we've come over the last number of years is very efficient, and this is just part of that. Cell tracking, tower tracking, all that kind of stuff is in there. And I read a great book, which was, I think it was called Killing Pablo, and it was about Pablo Escobar and how the U.S. military actually found him, and it was, you know, similar technology that did this triangulation of cell towers, obviously, but this isn't new, and it shouldn't be looked on as a shock that this information is being gathered. But you're right, a little encryption or deleting that file every once in a while, every 12 hours would be okay.
Right.
So Apple, that'll be ongoing, but I'm pretty sure that a week from now we won't be talking about that anymore.
We won't be talking about it. It's going to be a non-story. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's the guys out there who've, you know, always been concerned about security are going to try and use it, but reality is everybody does this. It's not an Apple only thing. It's only that local file on the device, and that will be fixed, within days, I'm sure.
Well, you hope. So, and yeah, it's an issue, obviously, if you lose your phone and somebody actually opens up the file and can follow basically everywhere you go. It's your footprint over the last 10 months, which would be interesting to watch. I think it would be interesting to see. I haven't done it personally, but I'm thinking about doing it.
But and also too, though, I mean, I think, how many people, like, is the average consumer out there, knowledgeable enough to go and find this file and open it up and do something with it? Like, probably not.
No,
right? It's a couple of hardcore PhD data engineers that found this.
Yeah.
Right. So let's be realistic.
Now that it's open, though, I'm pretty sure that there's a way to do it quickly. We'll let you. I'll give it a try. I'll publish my location and my whereabouts. I don't care. I live in the open a little bit. So the other thing, I love this company. We talk about it all the time, and we talk about launching of a new service. It's Xtify's new Retain service. I like Josh and what he's doing at Xtify, and I like this service. Let's talk about what they're doing, because it's one thing to get an app downloaded. It's one thing to get somebody engaged. It's another thing to keep them engaged over a long period of time. How many apps do you have on your iPhone or your iPad that you never use? And
it's a big issue, and we talk a lot about lack of innovation, and I think this is something that's actually very useful. Especially if you're an app developer.
Yes.
This is as useful as it can get, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, we all download a lot of stuff for apps for our phones. We all like to play around with new things. But the reality is we don't use more than 4 or 5 with any kind of regularity. And so I'm actually going to quote here. So it says, according to a Localytics study, 55% of new users use an application less than 4 times, 26% using that application just once. So this is after downloading it. And so what they've announced, or what Xtify's announced, is a new offering called Retain. This is targeted. Xtify builds tools for developers in the location-based arena in particular. That's kind of their focus. But what Retain is basically a system that allows you as a developer to push notifications to users of an app that have downloaded an app that says things like, hey, we see you haven't used this app for in the last 2 weeks. Would you like to try this now? So it's basically giving you a marketing vehicle to communicate with folks who've downloaded that app, to incent them, to encourage them to actually use the app more, and if they're not using it, then to remove the app as well. So things like that. So I think it's really useful on both sides. I mean, these devices are getting more and more storage, but at the end of the day, we also don't like to look at our phone and see 17,000 icons on it. We'd like to get that down to a manageable number. And so if you can push me notifications that say, hey, you haven't used this thing in a year, you might want to remove it, or let us remove it automatically for you.
Yeah.
That's a useful service to me. Likewise, if there's an app that I've pulled down and maybe I've just forgotten about in the last week or so that I want to play with, send me a reminder. That's cool too. I like that. So that's really what Retain is.
Yeah, it's incentive. I mean, reminders and incentives, I think, are the big thing. It always surprises me when I go to App Store on my iPhone or my iPad, and it says you have 73 updates. And I said, how is that possible? I don't even have 73 apps, but I do. You just forget.
Yes.
And for some reason, I hold on to them. Like I'm a pack rat. I'm an app pack rat, which I think we're going to see an A&E show at some point. I'm an app hoarder. I'm an app hoarder, right?
Yeah, there you go.
And I don't use them enough, but I certainly love what these guys are doing. I think that this is where these guys, Xtify, guys like this in Urban Airship, I think are at the forefront of this kind of technology. And whereas 6 months down the road, or even less, this is going to be commonplace in the app ecosystem, and we're going to have to find a new layer of engagement beyond that. But I love what Xtify is doing.
Yeah, and I think over and above just pushing those recommendations and reminders, and having that communication channel open, to users of apps. They also Retain also provides a fair bit of analytics as well. So I think that's an important piece. So having that data to know, are people responding to these little recommendations and reminders that you're pushing out? What's the take up rate once they get a reminder? Do they actually re-engage with that app? All that kind of stuff is really useful. So again, these guys I love these guys. Josh and Dan and the guys over there. Xtify's a great company.
Well, they're doing good things too. So Xtify and Retain, you can find information at xtify.com/retain. And all the information is up there, a good little video as well. So our last big news story, I don't know if it's a big news story or not. It's Looped not being left behind. How about we say this? And location-aware questions and answers, right?
Yeah. So, I don't have a lot to say about this. I mean, Sam Altman, founder of Loop, was at Where, gave his, annual update on the platform that, hey, kind of, we're still here.
Hi, Loop, over here.
You haven't really heard from us. But we're still here. We're still kicking. They still have somewhat of a user base, I think. I don't know personally anybody in my circle of friends up here that's using it, but there's still some people out there using it. So, good on them for surviving. They've added a new feature which they call Looped QS. That's big Q, little s. And basically it enables users to answer questions based on kind of local information. So, a question like, hey, who's playing at the ABC club tonight? Kind of thing. And users who are on the platform can respond to that question. They say that in a subsequent release that users will actually be able to create their own questions, but that's not available now. They can only answer questions.
Yeah, not much to say about this.
I don't know much to say about it, but hey,
it's one of those things you hope plays out, but we're looking for innovation, and maybe what they're doing is they're looking at they put a big I don't know, quadrant in front of them, and they said, okay, what aren't people doing? Or maybe this is like a website, a randomizer. Hey, the new location-based business randomizer, and outcomes. Hey, location-aware questions. I'm like, well,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like I guess it's like trying to be Quora location based or something. I'm not sure.
So let's let Loop play this out and see what it comes before.
What I don't understand is you have a company like Loop that's been around for a while, has a user base of some note. You don't hear much from them, and then they show up at Where and say, hey, now we're going to let people answer questions. But they can't create questions. They can only answer questions. Yeah. And we're only running this in beta, just in San Francisco. So it's not available. I don't know. It's I don't have much to say about that. I don't want to slag them, but come on, guys. We got to be able to do more than this.
Yeah, open is winning, and there are a lot of companies that are out there doing some innovative things, and so I think we reserve judgment on what Looped is doing. Maybe this is part of a bigger picture that we don't see.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Go Looped, please. So
come on, Sam, give us a call and tell us about what's in the roadmap or something.
Yeah, and anybody else who's out there who is associated with Looped and has some insight into this, or has used this, or has interacted with this, or wonders what they're doing, let us know. You can reach us obviously at the new LBMA's website through the feedback form, or you can just send an email to untether@gmail.com. That's it for the stories. Let's talk about some of the big news in funding this week. I think that the lead story isn't a shock to anybody, but it's not really a funding, it's an announcement of funding.
Yeah, it's an announcement of we're open for funding.
Yes.
So Foursquare, Dennis was on the record this week, basically came out and said, we raised a bunch of money last year. We raised about $20 million at about $100 million valuation. And we need more money. We're looking for about 20 to 40 million this year. And we're thinking that, we can get a $500 million valuation. The market kind of has come back on that so far and said, you're dreaming.
Did they say, I think it's what they said. Right?
I think it's more realistic. We're going to see about a $3.5 to $400 million valuation, which is still incredible. Good. it's still good. And especially if you were in on that first round last year, that first 20 million, to see that kind of jump, lift in valuation. I'm sure some of those guys will be cashing out already, and some will re-up again. But anyhow, it's we'll see. I mean, they definitely need the money. I think they're feeling the pressure. Foursquare is definitely feeling the pressure of Groupon and some of these acquisitions that we've just been talking about, the Where and the Whirls, and they understand. Foursquare understands they need to grow that team. I mean, they're only 60 people right now. And actually, what I didn't say is I saw Dennis speak twice last week. Once at an event in San Francisco the night before Where started, to a girl. It was actually a Girls in Tech event, and he was the keynote speaker there. And also after his keynote with Robert Scoble at Where, both times he got up and spoke at the end of his presentations. When they asked him, what's next, where are you going, what do you need? Both times he said, we need people. Yeah. He says, our number one thing right now is hiring. We've opened an office in San Francisco, and we're hiring anybody and everybody we can find. So he's very, very clear on that.
Well, they need this money to compete, because what was once a nice little niche market, and they're moving into it. I saw Scoble's interview from Where, and it just seems to me that they've taken what was once a hobby or an interesting idea and a neat little concept about checking in, and now they're really starting the business side of it, and they want to build up their commerce engine and their predictive engines and all of those things that we've talked about in many episodes. But I also believe this is firmly a preventative measure, or it's a valuation game where they are determining how much that they can get bought for. So if a year ago it was 100 million, now they're talking about the price tag's going to be $350 to $400 million dollars as an acquisition. Maybe somebody's going to swoop in there before the funding and pick them up for 150 to 200 million. I think that this is also a fishing game because of the acquisitions. They were once up against nobody other than Goala, and now they're up against Facebook. Who did we name? Facebook, eBay. We're talking about Groupon. We're talking about all of these other companies that are getting into this space. It's crowded now, and they're small compared to all these other guys.
But I think part of the challenge for Foursquare is, from somebody looking to acquire them is, what are you getting, in that acquisition? I mean, yes, you're getting a user base, but the reality is the companies that would be looking to acquire them, whether that's a Facebook or Google or whoever who can do those kinds of deals. I'm not sure that's what they want. Well, no. Per se. Right. I mean, and from a technology perspective, Foursquare is not aware. They don't have the patents. They don't have, they don't have that. They got 60 people, right? They got, and the engineering talent that's currently there, I would argue, isn't, the best, out there. It's, from a usability design perspective and so on, which is why they're out saying, hey, we want to start hiring like crazy because we know we need this talent. Yeah. So I'm not sure. I mean, sure. I mean, I think they still have the best brand. They still have the most users. So that's of value to somebody. But
they have merchants.
Needs to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll go on. Foursquare is not at this point is not a company that should ever go public. And I think that when you look at the quality of company that are out there, they're an opportunistic company, and they've taken everything that they can and created great outcome from this opportunity in the location-based space. But they're small. And the valuation for that, I mean, what does that put it, like $40 a user? That's a lot. It's a premium valuation on people, and I don't know what their active user base is versus the actual number of users they have.
Yeah, they don't talk about that. That was a direct question. And
it was? Okay.
There was no answer.
So, but Foursquare raising between $20 and $40 million at a huge valuation. So even at
they'll get the money. I have no doubt they'll get that money.
They will, but it's just, are they going to give up 10% or 20% of the company for that? Right. And what does that mean?
Yeah. And anyhow, so other than Foursquare, two other deals I wanted to mention on the funding side. One is a new startup, LA-based startup actually, called HipGeo. So they raised, just a small little round of $500,000 to kind of get going from a company called Murado Ventures. Interesting thing here is this is a company that's been started by a bunch of ex-Yahoo guys. So certainly guys who have some pedigree. What they're doing is, what HipGeo does is basically it auto generates a track, a listing of where you're going, the places that you're going, kind of logging those, a la Apple, that we were just talking about, and then the routes that you've taken to get to those places. So it's a little bit different kind of spin. It's kind of interesting, and then we'll see whether there's an ad layer that gets put on top of that. But
Sure, yeah.
Anyways, so HipGeo, $500,000 to get going, and ScanBuy, a company we haven't talked about for a while, New York-based company, one of the pioneers in barcode scanning, QR code scanning, the creators of the Scan Life app, which many people have. So they announced $5 million in new capital this week. And we'll see what happens with that. I mean, they've signed a bunch of new deals. They've got a national deal with Home Depot. They just announced they're working with Molson Coors on various QR stuff on packaging. And we've talked about QR a little bit in the last couple of episodes, and I still think I'm sort of in agreement with Google that NFC is going to kind of jump over QR in North America, but I think there's still this window, this place for QR to kind of really exist on the print side, in CPG and packaged goods, on those beer packaging and so on. So I think that's where Scan Life is going to have a life, and ScanBuy, and they had a stat. I was reading their press release. They said in 2010 there was a 1,600% increase in barcode scanning.
Yeah. So
it's definitely on the rise in terms of usage. It's just whether how pervasive it's going to be in the market.
Yeah, it's whether it's a blip or it's a continuing trend, I think is the key thing. And yeah, certainly packaged goods and anything with a package, and it's cheap to print and it's easy to print, and as long as all you're trying to do is bring them over to a website, I think QR codes will serve a spot in this whole thing.
Right.
Let's talk about our actual product of the week, which is an interesting one because it satisfies a really big problem that a lot of companies are facing right now, which is basically the return visit or the engagement with customers and bringing them back into or highlighting your best customers and bringing them back into a store or bringing them back into engage with your business. Let's talk about this company called Local Response.
Yeah, so Local Response is a new product, again, a New York-based startup that is launched in beta, and there is some serious pedigree here. So this is run by Nahel Almeida, who built Buzzed, and it's not a big stretch to go from Buzz to Local Response, nope. In my view. So what is it? It aggregates real-time social media and check-ins from all the tools. So Facebook, Twitter, Foursquare, Gowalla, Instagram, everything. Kind of pulls all those together, aggregates them all in one place. So if you're the business, if you're the merchant, you see all this aggregated content, all this discussion about you, all these check-ins about you, and you're able to respond to those in real time via Twitter and other social media tools. So it's really just acting as that aggregator and giving you a set of tools as a business to kind of communicate and track and respond in real time. So I think it's really powerful. In some respects, it's a kind of a wider, bigger version of Place Punch, yes. That we've talked about many times. So I think this is a space that we're going to see other guys evolve into as well.
This is the real-time stuff that we're talking about. It's it's rewarding people for being in your store. It's rewarding people for being consistently a customer of yours, and not waiting till they get back home or forcing them to. There's a big issue when it comes to location-aware and commerce, and walking into a store and scanning something with red laser and then buying it on eBay, for example, as opposed to buying it at the store. If you check in at a location, you're basically stamping your love of that product or that brand, and this gives the marketing team at that company the ability to interact with that person. It might be a
Right.
little creepy, but this is kind of that first foray into this. And I agree, this is a huge industry. Getting people to buy while they're in store, so
Yeah.
critical.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see, a little bit more of this over the next little while. So what I mean by that is already we're seeing kind of this kind of coming together of location analytics, a la, all the moment feeds, value vines, and even companies like GeoTelco who've kind of started in analytics and are kind of moved their marketing positioning to campaign management.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's where a local response and a place punch also are going to kind of dovetail into that world as well, right? So it's, at the end of the day, this moves from we as a business are experimenting and reacting to the tools to we as businesses are actually taking ownership and control and managing these as campaigns with analytics, and real-time interaction with the consumer.
It's the final point on this, on something like local response, is that there's two sides to mobile, right? And one of them is where everybody's focusing on, is my mobile website adequate? Do I have an app? How do I turn this into revenue? But the flip side of this is that mobile is your customers are mobile. Your customers are using this and identifying themselves as in your store or a fan or a customer or something, and you have to be cognizant of both sides. People are focusing too much on the mobile web and the apps and spending a lot of money there, while their customers are in their store telling them that they're in their store or that they're a big fan of the product and not doing anything about it. So if you're in the mobile space, if you're looking at it, start with your existing customers. Forget about the other stuff. Satisfy your existing customers and actually reward them for being loyal customers. So localresponse.com. We're going to see a lot of this kind of stuff coming up in the next little while. I think that this is the side, the underbelly that we haven't seen a lot of so far. Local
Absolutely.
response. So
All right.
now our resource is obviously close to heart because you've just seen it all and you've been poring over this information. The Where 2.0, what I love about conferences these days is they're either broadcast live or all of their stuff is archived, except for the networking. Right. So Where 2.0 has basically put up all the PowerPoints and a bunch of video from their conference last week. Great resource.
Yeah, so again, we don't need to say much about it. We've talked a lot about Where and the O'Reilly event, and yeah, I mean, we'll put up the link and go check out some of these slides. If you weren't able to be at the event, and take it in. And the last comment, just to kind of move off that before we sign off here is, there's a lot of other stuff going on, and this week in particular, I'm actually headed back out to the West Coast again this week. For the CETW conference, which is Consumer Engagement Technology World, and this is a kind of different spin, which kind of plays right into the LBMA's focus, and that is, the conference is the kind of annual conference for the Digital Screen Media Association. So this is heavy on the digital signage, digital out of home side, but I think we're going to see a lot of discussion this week about that integration between digital screens, the out-of-home mix, and how location and mobile are all coming together, in a place. And I think so that's going to be a great event. And the LBMA is also, we're having our San Francisco chapter launch as well on Thursday, the 28th. So if you're watching this and you're in San Francisco, just hit the LBMA site and check out this Thursday, April 28th. There's an event in the evening in downtown San Francisco. So hope to see you there. What
a busy week. And then you get to stay home a little bit in May, or is this just
not at all?
No.
Not at all. So
the life.
It's crazy. But anyhow.
Yeah, we'll see if we can connect while you're in San Fran this week. But you can definitely count on us getting episode number 23 done next Sunday, so that the following Monday you will actually have, which is Election Day in Canada. So if you're in Canada, don't forget to vote. It's very important. Asif, thanks. Episode number 22 finished.
Thanks, Rob.
We'll see you next week.
Cheers.